Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's the old guy Jack. Getting older by the day. And I kind of gave up on my TW200. It's, no matter what I try, it just won't work, and I just needed a break from it. So I pushed it out, and in its place I pushed the Byron's DT400C. You can see that over there on the rack. She's sitting there waiting for a little love. I did get the turn signals physically installed, but not electrically, because we're going to need some stuff here. This thing came with a Vape Ignition. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I wasn't. So I did a little research on it, and what I came up with was that there's three basic parts to the Vape Ignition. One of which is the stator, which is down there in that area right there. And that has coils on it for charging and a pulse coil to tell the ignition coil when to fire. And the ignition coil they mounted right up here. Hopefully you can see that. That's it. And I believe that includes the CDI. There's a little box on the other side of it. So that's two of the parts of the system. The third part you see right next to the ignition coil is this right here. And that's for your lighting circuits. Basically all it does is it charges the battery so that you can run your lights. Now, the lights on this have to be upgraded to 12 volts because the output of the vape stator down here on the charging coils is 12 volts. So it sends 12 volts up to here. It goes up through this cable, comes up in here, and then they brought it clear over here so they could tie it all the way back over here to this little tiny battery in here. Well, it doesn't make much sense to me. So my thoughts are, I'm going to take this off. I'm going to mount the coil where it should be, right here. And back here, I'm going to put a turn signal flasher, because they took the turn signal flasher out and threw it away. So I'm going to have to move this someplace, and the best place I could find is right here where the tools are supposed to go. But if Byron wants tools, he's going to have to hang them from the handlebar or something like that. Or carry them in his pocket. He could do that. Or he could put a little bag right back here. Just fasten it right to that tube there. And if he's any good at welding, he could even weld a little toolbox in there. I'm not sure. I'm not any good at welding. So, what do we got here? What else? Well, if you look at this exhaust they've got on here, it's close to being right. But if you look down in here, you'll see that the hole, this hole, which is supposed to receive a bolt through this hole, doesn't line up. But luckily, Byron brought me another exhaust that's supposed to be for this bike. So we're going to work on that today and try and get it cleaned up. And then we're going to try and clean up this wiring. I'm not sure what all they did here, but you notice there's red and white here. Well, that used to go to the rectifier, which is up here. but the rectifier is now here. But this was a 6-volt rectifier anyway. So the other wires, brown in Yamaha world, is switched battery voltage. In other words, it sends the battery voltage up to the key switch, which comes through here. And the key switch, when you turn it on, it sends the battery voltage back through these brown wires and out into the system to power your turn signals, your horn. On the old system, there was a separate circuit that they used for the headlight, but the brake lights, turn signals, and horn all came from a 6-volt battery. So, I want to clean this mess up, and I think they just used this red wire as the wire from the battery, so we're going to take this whole little thing out here and just run a new battery wire up there. And they've got it running, I believe, yellow to the headlight. And so the headlight's on all the time, I guess. And then I have no idea what this is. I can't read the writing on it. It's tied between a blue wire, which I don't know, might be part of the tail light. There's a blue wire, I believe, that goes to the tail light. And then it also ties to the brown wire. So when you switch the key up there, that 12 volts goes up to the key switch and comes back down to here. And then they tied this blue wire in, probably to the headlight or to the headlight switch up here. So we're going to have to find all that stuff out. So I'm going to get with it right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use a wire brush on that. I'm going to find some good high temp paint, and we'll see if we can't get that cleaned up and ready for some new paint. But I'm not going to show you any of that because you know how to use a wire brush already. And you can hold your finger down on a paint can, I hope. So I'll be back. Well, it's almost quitting time. For me, anyway. And I've been at it for about 3 hours and took the old exhaust off of this guy and cleaned up the new exhaust, which isn't new, of course, and got some paint on it. And I'm going to let that cure overnight before I even try to put it back on. I also, while I got the exhaust off, I want to take the compression release mechanism, which is right down there in front of the engine. You can't see it. So, give you a brief overview of the newly painted ones here. That don't look too bad. This one, I don't know if it shows up on the camera, but it's really pitted bad. Now this had some pitting here down at the bottom, but not too bad. Not near as bad as this one. Even the spark arresters all pitted up on this one. So we are making some progress, and we'll be back out tomorrow, and we'll maybe I might put these back on. That paint's dry already. I used VHT flame-proof header paint with ceramic coating. And then over the top of that, I used VHT Flameproof Satin Clear. I don't think you want these things to be real shiny, so I kind of like that satin finish on these. So I'll see you tomorrow. All right, now let's see what we got coming out of here that isn't connected to anything. A black, a brown with a white stripe, and a brown. All right. We talked earlier about how the brown, this brown, is actually switched voltage from the battery. So when you turn the key on, it takes what's on this red wire here and turns it around and sends it back out on these two brown wires here. Those two brown wires are connected to these two brown wires, and they provide voltage for your horn, your turn signals, your tail light, your brake lights, and your instrument lights up there. We hope that they already replaced the instrument light bulbs with 12-volt bulbs, but we don't know that for sure, so we'll have to check it. This is the connector that goes to the CDI / ignition coil. So that stays where it's at. We're going to mount the coil here, which is where the old coil was. This spot up here was for the turn signal flasher, and we'll try and remount our new turn signal flasher up there. It may also have been the rectifier, but we won't need that because this is the rectifier now. Have I just confused everyone? Hopefully I haven't confused myself too much. This black wire is a ground, providing ground back here to the tail light and the two turn signals in the back. You'll find it coming out in here someplace, but it will also tie to the battery. I was looking, the exhaust system mounts through this grommet right here. The grommets are available, but there's a special core that goes into that grommet that is not available anywhere. I couldn't find it on eBay or Amazon or any place. Well, what do you say we get with it? Well, folks, unfortunately, my idea wouldn't work. I had planned on making a bracket and putting the new coil in where the old coil went. But I think even though it looks like it would bolt in there, that unfortunately this sticks out too far and will hit the gas tank. I can try, put it in there and see if it will work, but I don't know. I got 2.5 inches inside the gas tank. But I don't want this rubbing on anything. And it's pretty sturdy, but I just don't want this rubbing on the tank. Number one, it might open a hole in the tank. You never know. Well, folks, here, I didn't tell you this later, but I did make some adjustments to that new ignition coil, the vape coil. And by just notching, put a little notch in each side, I was able to get it in and use the original coil mounting spots. And then it did stick out just a little bit on the right side of the bike. So I just grabbed the tabs that come down and just slightly bent them towards the left side of the bike, and I was able to get it to center in between the groove that goes down the center of the tank, the empty space. So I didn't explain that later, but I did get it to work that way, and you'll see it in a later shot. So my other alternative is to put it up here where the rectifier was, and I want to cut this tab off so it'll sit flat against here. That's what I'm going to do. I might still try that. All right, I've been doing some parts searching. This grommet here is busted, as you can see. And I went up and ran this part number, which is 90480-20132. And came up with a good one, brand new Yamaha. Then the mounting for the I'll get there, for the oil tank right here requires a grommet. Right here requires a grommet. So it didn't have a minute when I took it out, but I was able to find, I think, which ones are which here, I forgot. I think these are part number 90480-14023, just the grommet. And then we also need, let's see, here's one. Let's get it out of the bag so you can see it. Well, I will get it out of the bag eventually. Might take me a while. I may be old, but I'm slow. I don't know what that means. All right, that's the other part. And I had about 10 of these in stock as well. I don't know where I got them, probably from KDI or someplace. They didn't have Yamaha part numbers on them, but they work just perfectly. So we're going to go ahead and put the grommets in these holes, this hole and this hole, and then we're going to stick this unit down inside the grommet, and then we're going to put a number 6 bolt, hex head bolt, that's 25 millimeters long in there, and tie everything up. And I'll be back. Alrighty, so we got these in. These are M6 by 25, both of these two. They've got the grommet underneath them, and then the special washer and sleeve combination under that. And they're tightened down properly. And then we went to work on the air box because this was lacking bolts when I opened it up. This bolt wasn't here, but the special grommet and washer were there. So I put a bolt in that one. That's also an M6 by 25. And then we go over to the other side. And now that we got the air box installed, we installed the part of the vape system that is the rectifier and regulator that charges the battery. So there is here a tab for ground, and the red one will go up and join with the red from the battery and the red which goes up to the switch. So the easiest thing to do would be to put a double connector on this one and then plug this one and the battery lead from the battery into that double connector. That's just the red wire, not the brown wire. So I think in this case, this brown wire that comes out of here is going to also tie to ground and the negative lead on the battery. That brown wire for Yamaha is usually switched 12 volts or 6 volts, whichever it happens to be. So it could be confusing, but we're not going to try and change the color of that. So we'll get to work and we'll try and get this all wired up. I'll be back. All right. Well, we got the rectifier regulator installed here. I think that's a good place for it. We used a riv nut to put threads in down here in the air box. I don't think that's going to affect the airflow any. It's way up at the top and they're not that long. I've been just replacing things that were missing or wrong or whatever. I had to take the oil tank off to get the air box out. And these were missing a couple of parts. There's a sleeve in there that wasn't there. The bolts were way too long, and so on. I need to get to work on the wiring because I'm going to make some changes to it and try and get it nice and neat like it's supposed to be. That's why I moved this rectifier regulator from up here to back here so I could put the ignition coil, the new ignition coil, not the this is a vape unit and contains the CDI, I believe. So I put this up here where the old ignition coil used to be. And so that's the major components. There's, of course, a stator down here that's different. That's from vape. And it sends this up on this cable. This plugs into this. And then this one, of course, plugs into this. Now, I tried to find, there's a sleeve that this rubber was damaged. So I had one of those. So I put that on. But there's a sleeve that goes in it that I don't have, and it's just not available. It's unobtainium, apparently. There's probably one out there someplace, but I couldn't find it. There were missing bolts and so on. And I just tripped over a power cord here. The The airbox over here had nothing in it. There was no, this bolt was missing. It was just kind of laying in there. These aren't used anymore. These were part of the old Yamaha ignition, and I want to leave them there in case he ever decides he wants to convert it back to Yamaha ignition from the vape. Or if I can't get spark. This thing doesn't have spark. I thought it did when it came in, but he told me he had been riding it, so I may have assumed. And we all know what that means. I may have assumed that it had spark. So anyway, when I first put it up here, the only thing I had done was take the carburetor out and clean it, and added a couple of parts in there that were either damaged or missing. So what else? The battery was completely dead, but that should, according to Vape, that should make no difference to whether you got spark or not. I put the turn signals on, the 2 front ones and the 2 rear ones. These are amber like they're supposed to be, and these are red like they're supposed to be. What else? Well, that's all for today. I disconnected the hose going down to the oil pump here and put the short one on with a pair of vice grips on it because I had to take this out to get the airbox out. Now, the nasty part of all that is that this was just sitting on top of here, and it should be glued in place. And I can't glue that in place with the oil tank here. So I have to take it all back apart again and glue this guy in where it belongs. We do it nice because we do it twice. All right, I credit that to Paul Cox at Fab Rats. I don't know if he's the first one that said it, but it certainly applies to me. So I'll see you next time. I'm going to go ahead and publish this. And you guys, I do appreciate your watching. And I hope that you will subscribe if you're not subscribed, and give it a big thumbs up, and we'll get into this vape system a little bit more here soon and see if we can get this thing running.